Welcome to this episode of the Coaching Circle. And today we're talking about one of my favorite topics, which is aging, and from the perspective of everybody's doing it. So, how about doing it brilliantly? And I love this, and I'm so looking forward to this episode because today's guest is a remarkable woman who I've had the pleasure to get to know very well over the last couple of years. And she is a source of great inspiration to me. Today's guest is Tass Schmidt, a life coach, speaker, writer, and founder of Life Reset. With a rich background in business globally and a passion for reshaping how we view aging, Tass helps people in their second and third acts of life rediscover purpose, vitality, and joy. And she's a powerful voice in the pro-aging movement and a living example of intentional living. I love this so much. Welcome to the Coaching Circle, Tass Schmidt.
Yay, Toni, I'm so happy to be here. And look, thank you for having me on as a guest. I'm looking forward to our conversation about my current obsession.
Yes, I'm looking forward to this, Tass. And I know we've had many of a conversation over, the last few years, and it is always fun, enlightening, and I always learn something from you. So I'm excited for this, and I'm no doubt you're going to make me laugh as well because you always do. But let's start with what led you to start this, and I'm going to say this current business you have because you've been involved in many businesses over the years. And why is what you do so important to you?
Well, it's all about me, really, Toni. Some years ago, let's say 2010, I was walking around, I was living in Beijing at the time, and I was walking around with my friend, Tracy. It was just an overcast day, nothing special, Saturday morning, just mooching about. And I heard myself say, Trace, I've lost my mojo and I just don't know how to get it back, and it scares me. And I was
Mm,
living a pretty high-end life at the time, and people would say a lot of privilege and access. But I started to, it really started there because I felt bad.
mm,
And I couldn't work out how to get myself out of it. So, fast forward, I stumbled across it was on, trawling through the socials, a coaching course for over 50s coaches. And I thought, oh, well, might as well do that. Sounds good. I've been thinking about it for a while. And then it just progressed from there. So really, initially, it was, the physician heal thyself sort of thing, because I wasn't coping very well with aging. And then I looked around and over several years and saw that lots of people weren't. There's sort of a low level depression, a sense of who am I? You know,
mm.
once you retire, and not that I'm anywhere near that, but lots of people have done. So yeah, so that's what really led me to it. And now it's, as I said to you earlier, it's my obsession. It's just something that I have to do. It's my whole life.
Yes. Yeah. I love this test. And I think, yeah, it is very relevant. And I've definitely seen people have struggles with aging, definitely. And uh, probably men more so in my reality as
Mm.
well, when it comes to their physical prowess or their career, like having owned businesses and different things. And so I know this is very real, and I feel like for me, I feel like I had a really strong role model in my grandmother who always talked about how fabulous it was to be whatever age she was. Like when she was in her 70s and 80s, she lived to be 93. And so I don't have any problem telling people my age. I think it's something to be celebrated. And I think we need to really be in this space of, celebrating life at every age more. So I'm really keen for this conversation. And what I would love to know, Tass, is I think this word retirement is really relevant, right? So what, in your view, in your experience, typically happens for people around retirement?
Okay, so it is typical because lots of people cope very well, but larger numbers don't. So typically what goes on, and this is very typical, is people approach retirement or, sale of their business or whatever with on the whole, a bit of a you beauty, now I can do everything I want every day. Get
Mm,
up when I feel like it, and so forth. And the holiday or the honeymoon goes on for a while. This is typical, okay?
mm.
And this is also from a fellow called Dr. Riley Moyes, who I really like a lot. He does a terrific TED talk on this. But this, what I'm about to tell you is echoed throughout all of the retirement industry, if you like.
Mm.
Anyway, so stage one, happy days. Get up when you like, golf as much as you like, or whatever, shop as much as you like, go out for lunch and so forth. But usually within about 6 months to about 18 months, that's the stats, people start to go, oh, now what? Who
Mm.
am I? Who am I now? That nobody's saluting me when I walk in the morning or standing up because I've been a judge, like who am I?
Mm.
And it starts to eat away at people. Now, entrepreneurial types do better because they're used to starting things up. But let's say you've been had a big career in the law or in medicine or anything, public service, whatever. That's not there anymore,
Yeah.
and you're not used to starting things up. So what happens then on the whole is people sink and the depression levels are really high. And often there's relationship breakup at that time. Divorce in the over 65 demographic I don't know where they all are, but on the rise, hugely on
Mm.
the rise. And a lot of this is because they don't have structure anymore
Yeah.
in their lives. And as you and I know, structure is very important. And they don't have the social connection because often people who've been working at that sort of level or low, not lower, but not at that. A lot of their socializing is around the workplace.
Yeah.
Yeah. So there's not really much opportunity to prove yourself or not. So what typically happens is people sink into kind of a depression.
Yeah.
And curiously, alcoholism and gambling is on the rise in that demographic as well.
Yeah.
So then the solution for all of this, for people who actually see that there's a problem and they don't want it, and keep in mind people are living longer, so there's 30 years, maybe, if you're lucky, maybe even longer, of life that essentially feels purposeless or whatever. So more and more people are realizing they need to do something. So what works really well on the whole is like you have to try things because often it's hard to anticipate what you're going to like or be good at, what's going to float your boat. But the greatest success comes with just having a go. And it might be and then the greatest success comes from when you have a go at something or you trawl through, well, what did I used to be good at? Maybe as a kid. Or what did I want to be really good at? It might have been, playing the piano or singing or painting
Mm.
or whatever. And that you loved, you got a kick out of it. The quickest success comes from when you delve back into your past and go, what was that? And work on that. But there's often a lot of trial and error. But if you get through that stage, then happy days. Then it starts to feel much, much better.
Yeah.
And the reality is, spruiking for what you and I do, Toni, is that you've got to that stuck point with your own mindset. And it's often hard to change the mindset with the mindset that created it.
Yeah.
In fact, it's very hard. So this is where coaching comes in because it helps you flip out. So people who are ready will come to coaches and it's very helpful and you get supported. And also a huge amount of success. It depends how much money people have got, but it's actually when you go into service. That seems to be the fourth phase. It's where a lot of people find success and joy.
Mm.
And that's it. And that could
Yeah.
be anything. And it doesn't have to be something, let's see, a lot of like men's sheds and so on are fabulous, but they're not for everybody.
Yes.
Some people want to do something much, I'm putting all of these measures on it, but bigger, grander than that. And that might be that you study something again, or it might be that you found something new, like a new charity or Yeah,
Absolutely.
whatever. Yeah.
And I think there's so much relevant in what you've just mapped out there, Tass, because I think even, touching on that, the increase in addictions or alcoholism or gambling. And it's really interesting. I think it was either Gabor Mate or Jordan Peterson. I can't ever remember which one. I think Gabor Mate, who essentially said that the opposite of addiction isn't sobriety, it's connection. And so this is the problem, isn't it? It's like you said, when people perhaps stopped working, and that's where a lot of their connection was, and then they're just not seeing as many people. And Mel Robbins was talking about this as well in her book I've just been listening to called Let Them, and talks about like friendships. There's some real key things about friendships, and number one is proximity,
Yeah,
right? Like to maintain regular connections with people, a lot of it is determined by the proximity. Like, how close are you to these people on a day-to-day basis, which of course is much easier if you're in a workplace, right?
that's right.
Until you find another place.
That's right.
Yeah.
And a, a lot of the time, as people have got older, their confidence is their social confidence around building new communities or networking or whatever seems to have diminished along with their slightly deflated sense of themselves
Mm.
and who are they as well.
Yeah. And
And
even like just because it's like they then have to like seek connection for the sake of connection, right? Whereas when you're younger, you probably, why will I connect because I'm working or I'm doing these things, and that's just a natural part of it. But then you're in a place where like, oh no, I actually have to seek to make friendships for the sake of I want to have friendships, which is a very different space, I think.
yes, and I take that even further. It's to have friendships with people that I actually like and that inspire me, as opposed to this sort of notion of all old people like each other, because they don't. You
No,
know, it's
no.
it's like anything.
Oh yeah,
So
my mum lives in a retirement village down at
mhm.
Victor Harbour. There's all kinds of drama that happens down there.
Well, also often because their people's lives perhaps aren't as full, you know,
Yeah.
drama is creating social drama is like the most exciting thing that's probably happened this week, you know.
Yeah. Well, and that's so relevant, isn't it? Because that's the truth of it. If you're not purposefully doing something to that interests you, that inspires you, or whatever, you're likely to find drama or worse, depression or whatever. And I think like what you were saying as well about, being in service. It's
Yeah.
very relevant because like we look at the six human needs, and like the two most important ones are growth and contribution.
Mm.
Are you continuing to grow and learn something, and are you contributing to something outside of yourself?
Yeah, yeah, that's right. And look, it's really important to maintain that relationship with yourself. I think that you are important.
Yeah.
A lot of people in retirement swing their focus, a lot of women, around to grandchildren or
Mm.
family. And so it weighs very heavily a lot of the time on families to provide that support. And there's nothing as inspiring as grandma, grandpa, auntie, uncle, who who are, doing stuff, something that inspires the
Yes.
other people, the younger people in your family, rather than being very needy and putting up with anything. I mean, what sort of an example is that?
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. I think that is such a relevant thing. And I think that could be a pressure. Like I've definitely heard, been coaching for a long time, you hear different people's family issues and things. And I've definitely heard time and time again where people are dissatisfied with their parents not providing enough support to their children as like a carer. And it's like, well, why do they have to? Right? Like, sure, if
Mm.
they want to, fabulous, but it's a big expectation.
It certainly is. It's
Mm,
certainly, I've observed that with my own mother, who essentially found purpose only through family when she first moved to Adelaide, and they lived just around the corner. She was always there doing everything.
mm.
because that's all she, I guess, valued about herself.
Yes. Yeah. And I think what's interesting, we've kind of touched on this a little bit, Tass, but I know that you have a real keen interest in men in this space as well. Can you tell me a bit more about that?
Well, I like men to start
Yes,
with. I mean, I,
me
I
too.
like women as well.
Yeah.
But I spent a lot of time with my dad, and he was a shearing contractor when I was, a little girl. I was his little princess.
Mm,
And so around shearing sheds and things like that. So it's just something that I'm very comfortable around men and particularly older men, and they seem to like me on the whole as well.
mm,
So what's led me to this is there's so much out there for women.
yeah.
There's just so much. And you go along to workshops and so forth. It's hardly ever any men, hardly
Mm,
ever. I mean, if you go to Anthony Robbins, there are lots of men,
mm,
but yeah, and probably Robin Sharma if he ever does tours or whatever the 5 a.m. club guy. But on the whole, men are not engaging in this stuff.
yeah.
Now, I think there's a whole lot of reasons for that, that people just haven't focused there. And whether maybe they don't feel safe or they're not used to talking about intimate things in a more public or even one-on-one. They don't, on the whole, talk about intimate things very easily, even in their own friend groups.
Yeah.
However, I believe that it's an absolute essential. So, firstly, I think there's not much there for men,
Yeah.
and secondly, I think a lot of the issues in the world today, let's face it, are men derived.
Hmm.
And so I think that there's a lot of very unhealthy masculine expressing themselves in very powerful positions.
Yeah.
And it's essentially time to review that. And because we're going to hell in a handbasket, that's the reality. If
Mm,
something doesn't change around that expression.
yeah.
And I think a lot of the people in my demographic are people that have been in powerful positions and can start making a difference. And then, of
Mm,
course, there's a lot of the time too, it will require buy-in by the women in their lives to
mm.
support that. But anyway, so yeah, so I just think, to sum up, I think that men have not had a lot of attention around this, but a lot of complaint against them.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's why I have a great interest in
And I
working
100%
with men.
agree. Yeah, I agree with that, Taz. Something that not a lot of people know about me is that, yes, I'm quite widely known as coaching and mentoring and supporting women, and especially other coaches, practitioners, and therapists. And I do a lot of work in that space, and I have for a long time. However, like there's another whole part of my business where I coach men, and they're typically men in their mid 30s to mid 40s who have built their own businesses up from scratch, and they're making multiple millions of dollars, but they have big amounts of stress and anxiety and even depression. And you're right, like they're in a space they don't have the support that they need or the ability to talk about it. But what's really good that I'm seeing in that demographic, especially, I don't know what they are,
Gen Ys, I think.
Gen Ys, millennials, I think maybe, um, is that they're now talking more about it, which I think is really good.
Mm.
And they're all my referrers. Like they were like they talk to each other, having stress, whatever. You got to go and see Toni. She's amazing. Da, da, da. And it just goes on like that. But and I'm actually seeing that in some of these owners that have staff as well. Like they employ me to be available for their staff, which is predominantly male as well. So if they're having stress and anxiety, that there's that support there. And I think, it's important. And like you, I spent a lot of time with my dad when I was young. So I have that rapport with men, and it's a very different relationship that I know you have with your clients that are different demographic, but that it's a real understanding of how they are, but it's just a different sort of dynamic from like the standard men's coach or more, the other more feminine sort of female coaching spaces. Yeah, it's a really important space. I think it definitely, deserves a lot more attention.
Yeah, interestingly, every time I mention that's where I'm aiming, and it's often in women's circles or women's conferences or whatever. And you can see people going, yeah, I can see that because women, I think, will be the drivers of this on the whole. But last night I went to an event and I ran into somebody that I like a lot but I rarely see. And she was with her partner, and he has a pretty senior role in South Australia in that whole CEO education space.
Yeah.
Anyway, I said what I was doing. Oh my God, that's so important. It's such great work. This is the feedback I get all the time. And he said, oh God, I think you need to talk to our mate. Let's say his name was Neil or whatever. He's a retired judge. And when he first retired, he was talking, which was about 5 years ago, he was talking about running men's retreats for people coming out of that legal industry, because there's in those sorts of industries, there's a use by date. And then who are you after that?
Yeah.
And and I spoke about that earlier. And I love it when people get it and see how important it is.
Yes.
It was the aim, and now basically now I just have to pull it off. That should be easy enough, don't you think?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, and it's just getting out there and talking about it, right? Because
Mm,
there is a need. And I think the more that people talk about this and more, we share information like this, like we are on the podcast, the more chances there are for people to hear it and either go, oh, you know what? I know someone who needs to hear this or needs that support, or
yeah,
I need this support. And make it like normalize that it's actually okay to talk about these types of issues like that. You might have lived a whole successful life up until a point and suddenly it doesn't feel that way anymore, and that's okay. Like, it doesn't mean you're failing, it just means you're at a different stage of life, right?
that's right. I wonder too whether, I mean, obviously this applies to women as well.
Mm,
So I'm really happy to work with women who get this, absolutely.
yeah.
But I really focus around men, because one of the things that has occurred to me is that, well, actually, the research supports this as well, that men actually do worse than women
Mm,
moving through this transition in life. But it's just not talked about all that much. But men also don't live as long as women,
mm.
generally. So I kind of think, oh, there's a link between that sort of slightly low level depression, that sense of purposelessness,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
uh, and 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 the shorter lifespan of men. I'm not
Look, I
sure.
wouldn't be surprised because like that lower state puts stress on the body.
Yeah, that's
Right?
right.
Is like less energy. Like, and the thing is that for us to feel alive and vital and to live healthy is we need energy in our body. So anything that reduces that level of energy in your body is going to reduce your lifespan. That's yeah.
Well, if you're not really super enthusiastic about something like living or
Yeah.
life, it just makes sense that, why would you kind of do all sorts of things to extend it?
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah. Anyway, I'm researching for a book at the moment, so that, there'll be a lot more information coming here around all of this stuff. And also, I've really been thinking a lot is how do we get to this point? What happened? And there's a lot, I haven't got very far with that research yet, but it's something that I'm just fascinated by, because we have got to that point where there's a lot of very unhealthy masculine around. There's lots of unhealthy feminine as well, but
Mm.
the 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 the, the impact on the world, I think, is coming largely from unhealthy masculine. I
Yes.
think, I don't know. I think that. So I I want to delve a lot more into that. And why don't men come to development courses. Why don't they do that? I mean,
Well, yeah, I think like a lot of the power struggles that we see in the world is to do with the unhealthy masculine, right?
yeah,
Because it's in that space of I've got to prove myself and the ego and the kind of competitiveness and a lot of it's driven by fear. I fear of I'm going to look bad or I'm going to be wrong or I'm going to lose status or, lose power or something else.
yeah, or they'll steal my land or my wenches
Yeah.
or my horses or whatever. So it's always on that defense.
Yes.
Sounds awful, actually. Sounds.
Yeah, it sounds depressing, doesn't it? But I think, there is a big shift that's happening. And I think that, I don't know what kind of time frame you're talking about when you say, there's more of it these days. I think definitely if we look over the last 50 years, I think we have more awareness of it,
Mm,
more so than that there is necessarily more of it. I don't know. I don't have the actual stats of that either. But I think even if we look at things like the terminology that we have now, I know like we now talk a lot about PTSD. Whereas back in the day after the wars, what did we speak about? Shell shock,
yeah,
it's different sort of thing. And so I think there's a lot more um recording of these things and monitoring of these things and awareness of and labeling of and but I'm not sure that we've really come to the full point of creating the solutions. We're on the way, I think, and this is the work
mm.
that you're doing, Tass.
Yeah, I think we are on the way, but there's a long way to go.
Yeah.
But I agree with you that people often go, "Oh my, you know, God, it's so terrible now," and all of the current, what's going on in the world currently. But there's also, keep in mind, there's a lot of good stuff coming on. We don't hear much about that. And I
Mm,
think what you said is right on point, is we know more about it now because we're deluged with images and information,
yeah.
whereas it's been pretty barbaric in the past as well.
Oh, yeah.
But you didn't necessarily hear about it in the next country or what else. And the whole, and getting back to the thing you were saying around PTSD, like for instance, people coming out of the traumatic situations, like even in the fire brigade or the army, a lot of people have come out with PTSD through a traumatic event or whatever. And there used to be a lot of shame around fessing up about that.
Mm,
Increasingly, it seems more okay, but I still think that there's probably deep down, because there's still possibly quite lots of shame or personal kind of sense of, well, I should be coping better with
yeah.
this, and I'm not.
Yes.
Privately held, that I'm lesser
I
because
think so as well, Tess. And I think even as you're saying that, I think, there's such training in that space that you're being trained to be the elite, the like saviors of the community or society or, the country or whatever else. So there's a lot of status and training around being at a level of service and, creating things. And I think that is in conflict with then going, well, actually, that role caused me a lot of trauma.
yeah, because you're trained not to be scared
Mm,
to a large extent. I mean, you often see, I was watching what was it called, Liberation D-Day last night, and it was about, Second World War and so forth. Even seeing that and going on, like the things that
mm,
people saw, but you were
mm,
trained to cope with that. I mean, imagine it being like absolutely quaking in fear the whole time and maybe just get used to it.
mm,
But the reality is it all goes in. It
mm,
also, the experiences sit in the body, and I think now there's more acknowledgement of that. But as you say, it's completely counter to what the training is. Like
mm.
you
The
couldn't be,
identity.
yeah,
Mm,
and you couldn't be scared in
mm,
those. You couldn't be constantly scared. I mean, well, maybe people are.
yeah.
But it's when you're not faced with that, and the adrenaline rushing around of being in that situation. And look, I don't know this. I'm just talking off the top of my head here. I don't know this for a fact, but Yeah, it's just more acceptable. So all of the things
Yeah.
around expressing, and again, getting back to men, expressing how they feel or what's happened, or maybe considering addressing some beliefs and mindset issues is pretty new,
Yes.
pretty new.
Well, and you know what I think is really important for this as well is because I think a lot of times when people are, whether it's just they're a bit stuck or they've got some old trauma and stuff that's going on, is that people haven't been taught how to deal with that and how to process it, right? And so it feels like, oh, this is just something that I'm stuck with often. But I remember when I went and saw Gabor Mate a little while ago when he was in Adelaide, and he was saying that the main thing for trauma, especially in children, is not the actual thing that happens to them, but whether they were able to talk to somebody about it who believed them and supported them and validated how they felt about it.
Mm.
And I think this is really important because essentially it applies to adults as well,
Yeah.
right? So if someone is in a situation, whether it's trauma, there's background of trauma, which these days everyone's got some kind of trauma in their background. That's quite normal. No one gets out of childhood unscathed.
No.
But even just being able to have someone like yourself that people can go and talk to and express how they're feeling and be validated and just be like, yes, it's actually okay that you feel this. I understand that you feel this. And then help with a way to be able to like process that and move forward is such a valuable thing.
Yeah. I think I should clarify. I don't specifically deal with people who come to me with a
It
major trauma.
No, it's not
I'm
major
not
trauma,
qualified to
but
do that.
like
But
just any kind of way that people feel, if people feel stuck, and like what we are talking
yeah,
about, before, if they've come to the end of their career or whatever else, they're not feeling and they're feeling stuck, like those are feelings that aren't nice just to hold on to by yourself.
no. Well, I believe that you don't actually lose your potential as you age. It's only when you stop believing in what's possible for you.
Yes.
So, and often the belief about what's possible for you has been played out or exercised or whatever through your career or through your business or whatever else. But when you get to that point and you go, oh, well, I'm not that anymore. So now what? So mainly what I'm probably best at is around the goals. Like, okay, so
Yes.
establishing what that is. And that's really important. And often people need help doing that, as you would have found with the work that you do.
Yeah.
And really getting very clear about what might be meaningful and, harking back to Moyne's and his retirement stages of retirement is sometimes people just don't know what they want. And so sort of working with someone to get, yeah, okay, well, that seems meaningful. And then now I think in my life, I had lots of goals. And until I had done a lot of this work, it was just a fool's errand because I would have always brought the the bits of me that don't work to the equation. So
Mm,
setting goals is really hard if people don't have uh, help realigning their mindsets and values and beliefs. I think it's very, very difficult. And it's
mm,
probably even more difficult as you get older because, I always think of all of that stuff laying up like scar tissue, all the ways you let yourself down or didn't, all the ways you think this is possible for me or not. So
yeah.
that's why I think people often need help moving forward into a new phase of life. So that's,
Yes.
as I said earlier, I did need help. So therefore everyone does.
Yeah. Well, I mean, but that's the thing. It's like you're not alone, right? It is a real thing that happens in the world. And and like as you were saying that, Tass, I think it is a thing that I notice, and I'd be interested in your experience of this in the demographic that you work with, but where people often say, "Oh, I want to get back to how I used to be." Right?
Mm.
Like there was a time when this was happening and I felt like this, and I want to get back to that. But it's like you're never going to get back to a certain time. It's like you're creating a new time. Like, how do you want to be now? Because I think that's one of the things that trips people up going, I want to be back to how I was, however. many years ago. But what's your thoughts about how you bring that forward into well, what is it now that we're creating? How do you want to be now?
Well, what you're describing is very much around the looking in the rear vision mirror. And
Mm,
it's just not feasible because how you were back then, there was probably a whole lot of other warts that you're not talking about, you know.
yes.
So I'm very forward thinking. And just while we're on the subject of that, I think there's a lot of, I don't know, there's a lot that goes on in the world, a lot in the media and so forth that actually puts the getting older time of life into something that's very undesirable.
Mm,
Whereas yeah, everything's fabulous when you're young, you know, all of the anti-aging products. I mean, I it drives me insane that,
mm,
well, partly, but along the lines of that, all of the anti-aging silly. So so to look just looking back is never going to get you anywhere. It's only looking, I believe, looking forward that's going to get you anywhere because it's just a hotbed of depression and resignation if all you're doing is going, oh, well, I want to be how I used to be, or I want to look how I used to look. I think it's fabulous to actually look how you look now and celebrate it.
yes.
And and one of the things, and look, I'm all for a bit of plastic surgery if people want to do that, or you know, wearing some makeup, you get your teeth done, whatever
Yeah.
that makes you feel good. So you don't have to be how you used to be if you, I guess, celebrate who you are now and you take that energy to the world. And people I have found really respond to that energy, and you can still look great, you know,
Yes.
if that's what you're talking about, or you can still do amazing things. There's so many people in their 80s and 90s doing incredible things. I mean, I saw a lady, I don't know, I think it was the New York Marathon. She was 93. Now, she had been running for a while, but only for 10 years, you know,
Ah,
or
wow.
something like that. And you know, people doing, you know, writing their first books or doing the Camino Trail or finding new love. I've come across a few of those lately in their 80s and they're
Yeah.
like puppies. It's just fabulous. You know,
Yes.
puppies in a basket cuddling. And so look, the point is there's a whole new frontier. There's a whole new adventure ahead. And that's when people think like that, they're very attractive
You know what,
and
Tess?
very inspiring.
Yes, this is such a good point because this is something that I noticed. Like my whole life, people have always said, "Oh, you look younger." Apart from, I don't know, when I was younger, I used to manage to get into places before I was old enough to drink. But people, and because this is quite recent, because I turned 50 last month, and a lot of people say, Toni, you look so much younger than 50, right? And it got me thinking because like for a long time I'm like, oh yeah, that's my normal kind of thing, my favorite game, how old do you think I am? People always think I look younger, which is great, but I'm like, I'm starting to think like, I don't, the goal's not to look younger, right? The goal's to look
Yeah,
healthy. So how about we, start thinking about how healthy we look? And like you said, that might be whitening your teeth because whiter teeth generally looks healthier than mangy old falling out teeth, whatever, right? But like you, it's about being healthy. So you're exercising not to be skinny, but to be strong and healthy, like you're and not just healthy, but you actually have a passion for life. And I think these are some of the youthful attributes that we want to name as the actual thing we're after. It's not about, oh, you look like you're 21. It's like, wow,
mm,
you've got a passion for life. You're healthy. You look after yourself. It shows that you've got, love for yourself, whatever that might be. I think that's the thing that we want to get focused on.
yeah, I completely agree with you. And a lot of the things that can also stimulate that are things like exercise.
Yeah.
And I get a lot of, oh, I can't be bothered. Well, the thing is, we can be bothered doing something else. And when you think of it, as a gift to yourself to be able to enjoy life longer. See, I think healthy is a motherhood statement. I go, well, why do you want to be healthy? What feelings will you get from that? What will it enable you to do to be healthy and mobile? And
I
lots of
think
people,
it's like
unfortunately,
it's a level of energy though, isn't it?
yeah, it's all about energy.
Yeah.
It's all about energy. And like one of the, I think it's in the Jordan Peterson book, the 10, is it 10 Rules of Life or something like that?
Yes, something along those lines. Yes.
Something, yeah, I think that's it. He talks about posture. And
Mm,
I look at people's posture and how they hold themselves. And energetic, it says a lot to me about that person's energy.
yeah.
And and you don't have to be a stick thin, or you can be any shape or size, but if you walk around with a kind of, yeah, I'm pretty okay countenance, which
Yeah.
is not going to be, you're not going to be walking looking at the ground, you're going to be up. And
Yes.
lots, and so a lot of the time, I believe a lot of the time it's relatively easy and doesn't take very long to just be mindful of posture,
Yeah.
as opposed to sitting in the chair like this, to just sit up. And for a while it's a little bit uncomfortable, but you get used to it. And
Yes.
then,
I
you know,
100% agree with that, Tass. I noticed that as well. I noticed that even like in like the young women that are all focused obviously on being skinny, but then they're all like hunched over and everything
yeah,
else. And it's like you don't look better for being skinny. You look better if you had good posture.
if you just stood up straight.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know. I noticed that a lot. And one of the things that's happened to me as I've got older is I'm more likely to say something. And I can't tell you the number of times that I've wanted to go, headlights, these beautiful young girls walking along the street, sort of hunched over like that. Headlights, come up you come.
Yeah.
But of
It's
course, I
so funny.
haven't yet, but I might.
One of my friends was telling me she's a speaker. She does a lot of speaking. She's amazing, Ali Nitschke, and she was involved in this flash mob at this conference that she was at. And she said the lady that was doing the choreography for this flash mob, she was a performer. I think she'd been in like a Las Vegas showgirl or something at some stage. But she said she kept yelling at us, eyes, tits, and teeth, eyes, tits, and teeth. Which was
It's
just
true.
like, look up, smile, and push your chest out, right?
Yeah.
Like, which I think, yeah, it's funny, but true.
Well, I became very aware of that with a friend of mine who's actually my presentation coach, but he was an acting coach as well and an actor up north. So when I was often at his place for the weekend, he'd come up behind me and put his knee in my back basically and pull me up. Because part of the thing is you need people to tell you as well,
Yeah,
because it's something that
be out of
it's
awareness.
yeah, you're not aware. And I think one of the great favors that people can do is with my friend Paul, in a joking sort of way, he used to say, headlights, Tass. And it just made me more aware, because it's usually not the sort of thing you'd say to someone.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a step beyond you've got parsley in your teeth or lipstick on you. It's a step beyond that. But
I will tell people if they've got parsley in their teeth as
oh,
well.
I definitely do, but I mightn't tell them if their posture's a bit off. Mightn't.
But headlights is like a non-confronting thing. Like, like you can say that and it can be like an inside joke where not everyone's going to know what that means.
Well, that's right. And I still haven't quite worked out what it means, because I always used to think it was like my
Put your
nipples
tits
up.
up. Yeah. That's
But
what
I'm
I
not
thought.
sure. I'll have to ask him.
Your eyes are up and
Well, maybe I
tits
can
are up.
build awareness around it. So just by talking about it rather than singling people out.
Yes, that's the thing. But it is. But even when you think about it from, I taught this a lot in NLP, is that when we think about what is the connection between our thoughts, our feelings, our physiology, and our actual actions and behavior, physiology plays a big part of it. So it's very hard to feel like you are on top of the world and having an amazing time while you're hunched over and looking at the ground.
Yeah, well, energetically, it's just not aligned, is it?
It's not aligned. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And
absolutely.
I just recall, I think when the first time I went to the Tony Robbins weekend, he talked a lot around physicality about,
Yeah.
change your state by
Yeah.
changing, how you are
100%.
in your body.
Exactly. And that's exactly why when you go to a Tony Robbins, I always got to call them concerts because they're like concerts. Seminars is like it's like a personal development rock concert because they know if they get people jumping around and dancing to music, they're going to have more energy and they're going to be in an elevated state. And hopefully at the end of the seminar, they're going to buy more courses. But
Yeah.
but you will learn a lot more and transform a lot more when you're having a good time. And that's really important. So we've talked a lot about the places where people are in their life and all those kinds of things. So what do you feel like is, like when you work with someone, is it what they just come in for you just to have a session with you, or is it like a bit of a process or a program, or like how do you best work with people, Tass?
I've worked a few different ways, and I think people come to me with a goal in mind as opposed to a problem in
Yeah.
mind. And what I've found is that initially getting a sense of the goal and talking through the goal, that's kind of exciting. And that motivates people to possibly then do some of the work that sits behind that, which might involve a breakthrough
Mm.
program, which can be, maybe 3 months if we couple it with the support through the goal or longer. So how it's turned out. Because for me, and this isn't true of all, a lot of the people, particularly in this demographic, the idea of coming to me and we're going to sort your problems out, crudely put,
Mm.
it's not going to.
You're not the fairy godmother, in other words. You haven't got a magic wand.
No,
Yeah. Yeah.
it's not something that's probably all that inspiring,
Mm.
but something that you want is inspiring. And then so I kind of covered it from that direction,
Mm.
particularly in that demographic, because a
Yeah.
lot of them are not even aware of that there might be some issues behind getting in the way of them achieving that goal or even what the goal might be. So
Yes.
that's yeah, and that's yeah, and that's fun, more fun for me too. So it's not that the whole lot's not fun, but it's about let's move forward. The goals are forward.
Yes,
Mm.
absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And I think that's the thing, like whenever we've got a goal, and I know this for myself as well, my best clients are people that absolutely know the value of their life. They just feel like they're not fulfilling it right now. And
Yeah.
that's what they want to have help with. And so, yeah, whether that's a specific goal or whether that's like they just want to be living a larger experience of life. It's like
Mm.
if you're not getting there yourself by yourself, then a coach will get you there much quicker and in a much more enjoyable way.
Yeah. And it could also be people just know they're not happy
Mm.
and there's something missing. And so you'd say, well, then happiness is the aim. But then I would go, well, what sorts of things would make you happy?
Yeah.
And because it's happy again is a motherhood statement. It's like,
Yeah.
well,
Well, happiness is comes and goes, right? Isn't it? It's
yeah,
like would you say it's more about the like fulfillment or satisfaction in life?
yeah, yeah, just that you feel better in your days.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. And keeping in mind that some days you wake up in a crappy mood. Well, there's things you can do to flip
You
that,
do. Yeah.
but it's yeah. So summing up, it's really very much about the outcomes that people want, and then we'll figure out, well, what's getting in the way of those outcomes.
Yeah, absolutely. And Tess, this has been really interesting conversation, and I know that there'll be loads of people that listen to this and think, "Oh my God, this is something that I need help with." And I know there's also a lot of other people who listen to this podcast who have businesses. So I always like to, talk a bit about your journey in business as well, and because I think when it comes to starting a business, there are so many different ways that you can start a business and what your business can be about. And even like coaches, there's not just one type of coach, there's so many different types of coaches around. And like I think one of the things that you're such a great example for with your clients is that you're doing business at this stage of life, right? And so tell me, can we have a bit of a conversation about that in, why you decided that you would start a business again at this stage of life?
Well, I'm not very good with nothing much to do.
Yeah.
Glug, glug, glug.
Yeah.
Bar opens at 4.
Yeah.
I'm being facetious, but it's I'm wobbly if I'm not busy. I'm wobbly if I don't have a project on. I'm just not a good self. I've often thought about, well, let's say I won the lottery tomorrow. Would I still want to do this? And the short answer is yes, because I think it's just, and that's a litmus test for me.
Yeah.
Would I still do it
Yeah.
if money wasn't a consideration?
Yeah.
And yeah, so the thing around business is, so why start a business now? Or why not?
Yeah.
Why not? Absolutely. And I feel like it's taken me to this time in my life to really find my true purpose. I always thought I had something big to do,
Yeah.
and it wasn't necessarily. No, I've done. I think I've started 15 or 16 businesses, various sizes over the years, and probably until now, none of them really spoke of me. It's just that I knew how to do it.
Mm.
I knew how to set something up. I knew how to make a margin. I'm very margin conscious, and but the difference this time, and why I probably found it more difficult, is actually about me and what I believe, as opposed to a product or a service that
Mm.
marketing service or something. This is I'm putting myself on the line here about what I believe to be
Yeah.
true. And
Yeah.
not everyone's going to agree with me. Imagine that.
Yeah. Yeah.
Pity help them.
What? Yeah.
Pity help them.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah,
But it's that I think it is such a great thing because you really are demonstrating that age isn't a problem, right? It's just a fact. It's just a number. You can decide to do whatever you want to do. And in fact, you've got plenty to offer. You've got loads of value. Like there's a purpose that you have to serve in the world. And who's to say what limits on that, right?
oh, that's right. And it's very important for me to do something big. And I can see that this potentially helps, depending on whose ear I can get into around publicity building and speaking at big events and so forth, that it can actually make a difference to what's going on. And I think we are actually about right now going through a major transition in the world.
Yeah.
It feels like something's got to give.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so what I'm doing can reflect that and give me that satisfaction and make a difference.
Yeah.
And it's very much of service, not just to people and individuals, but to the planet. See, I think that so many of the things that are going on now are very destructive, and a lot of it is that masculine, led by that masculine energy that's gone
Yeah.
seriously awry.
And I think, the thing with age as well, that comes with like the amount of experience and wisdom and everything that you have available to you. Like the world needs it, right? Like
Yeah. And
your
look,
clients. Yeah.
look, I haven't run an international, well, I have actually, but not a huge blockbuster organization. But I can speak the language of that, and I've been around the people that have and understand, have some sense of what that is. And I was involved in a research project some years ago out of Carmel University about uh, what are the characteristics of a successful international CEO and so forth. Because I knew somebody, I got to be part of the survey, or just and yeah, so I understand that, and I think a lot of it probably puts me in a good position in my demographic because I understand that world.
Yeah.
I speak that language. It's not little speak, it's big speak, big picture speak.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. Oh, good. Well, Taz, I feel like this is a conversation that we could keep having, and I'm sure we will at another time. And it's been amazing. But I would love to just share with the people who are listening, if they want to get in touch with you, what's the best way? I'll put all your contact details in the show notes, but like emailing you. And I know that you've got a free gift for our listeners as well, haven't you? What's the download called?
Okay. The download is 10 top mindset shifts, quite long.
10 top mindset
10,
shifts.
10
Yes.
shifts for living with purpose and meaning for beyond 60 and retirement, I think. Now, people below 60, more than happy, but that tends to be the demographic because a lot of the
Yeah.
people in their 50s, they might be pitching forward and going, oh my God, I'm not going to live forever and it's going to be all over. But a lot of people in their 50s are still very enmeshed in their careers and still advancing through. So I think really I'm focusing on that, 60 plus
Yes.
and forever. It doesn't matter.
Yeah.
So yeah, so how people can get in touch with. So I've designed the
Yeah.
workbook, checklist, whatever else it is. And there will be a bit.ly link to that
Yes, I'll
in
pop the
the show
link to
notes.
that
Yeah,
in the show notes. So you can go
yeah,
under this video and or this audio and go and click that, and you can put in your name and your email, and you'll get access to Tass's top 10 mindset shifts for
that's right. That's right.
living purposefully after 60, which is
Yeah,
amazing.
that's
Yes.
right. But wait, there's more.
Oh,
So the top 10 mindset shifts. So there's a couple of emails, but you won't be deluged for the mindset shift. It's just a follow-up one. Because sometimes people might actually enjoy to talk it through with someone. So there's a follow-up email that goes, if you'd like to talk this through,
yes.
I'm not going to do the whole thing for you, but actually get you juiced up
Yes.
around thinking what's possible, thinking bigger or not. Then I'm offering people a 30 second, that's it, 30-minute.
That's how good you are, Tass. It only takes 30 seconds.
There you go. 30-minute
Yep.
conversation about this to kind of get people on the road. But the bottom line is up to you. But sometimes I think people need a little bit of stimulation, perhaps, or
Yeah.
somebody to throw ideas at them, or ask questions. So not only do you get the excellent workbook that's actually probably quite fun to do. It's not too arduous. You don't have to write essays or anything like that. But then if you want to talk it through, there's an opportunity for a free 30-minute, I don't want to call it a discovery call because it's technically, I don't think it is that. It's actually to help you help you with the checklist. That's it.
Yes, absolutely.
And
And do
then
it for
after
someone
that, you
who
get the sorry,
is
go on.
living their life large and doing all those things. And so that's great. So that I'll put the links there. You'll be able to go and check that out. Absolutely. And I'll have Tass's website and social links and everything there that you can go and learn more about Tass and get in touch with her. And one question I always love asking people, Tass, because I think this is such an important part of life that we often, well, not us, but other people overlook, is what do you do for fun, Tass? What do you do when you're not out coaching and speaking and changing the world? What are your fun things?
Mhm. Okay, I cook a lot. I like having friends for dinner. When I get time for it, I like gardening. I draw. I like going for drives in the country. I like going out for nice meals, not all that much. I like
Mm.
camping. What else do I like? Oh, binging on series on Netflix.
Netflix?
Yeah, being around friends, really, and
Yeah.
travel.
Yes.
There's, there's only so much time, you know.
I think you're very good. That's one thing I notice about you, Tass, is that just about every time I talk to you, you're talking about some kind of connection with friends that you're having, whether it's going interstate to see friends or you're having friends for dinner or you're doing something. There's always some kind of social connection element that you have in your life. And I think that's, yeah, really important and great.
Yeah, well, that's true. And I think that's come largely because you'd be surprised to hear this, that I was actually quite shy. But all the moving around, I just had to go out there. So, I took myself to China on my own. I went to Sydney on my own from Adelaide. And more so in recent years, I just get very connected. So I end up with a lot of people in my life. And
Yes.
so, yeah, but it's been an effort over time. Not now, though. It's just, it's just something that happens naturally.
Yes. Well, look,
And
and
I,
I can understand why you have this many people in your life, Taz, because I know you definitely bring enrichment to my life. I always enjoy connecting with you and our conversations and from all levels of things that are just fun to, the deeper more real elements of the world and life. You're always super great value, and this has been a fabulous conversation, Taz. So I'm really grateful to have you on today and to share this conversation because I think it's information that really needs to get out there.
well, thank you so much. And the feeling's mutual, Tony. And I am so glad I went to a networking event one night about 2.5 years ago and met Marianne Bennett. And that's how I found about you.
Introduced us, yeah.
Yeah, and here we are. And it's been so enriching in my life as well. Absolutely a game changer for me to work with you, Tony. And now we've become friends. So that's even
Yeah,
more fun. So we've
even
got
better.
lots of more fun ahead of us.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, thank you, Taz. We will have to continue this conversation another time. And yeah, enjoy.
Great. Fabulous. Thank you so much. Thank you, everyone, for listening as well.